Bob McCown podcast, yours truly, Bob McCown. Intriguingly enough,
That's
it'd be interesting if we called
a
it
fascinating name.
if we called it the Joe Smith podcast, and you and I did that. That actually would have been probably a better idea because people would have been constantly wondering who Joe Smith is, who never appears on his own podcast.
Yeah,
I find that a little bit more intriguing.
It's kind of like Jimmy Kimmel when he says that Matt Damon, we didn't have time for Matt Damon at the end, right?
Every night.
So,
well, we got time for these two guys. We're going to talk basketball. It is the All-Star break after all, and an extended All-Star break now. They sit for about a week now, right? They go back, what, Friday night?
I think they start Friday. Yeah, Friday night. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're not at the halfway point. We're 50 odd games in, almost 60 games in. So it's really the stretch run. But nonetheless, it is a time to reflect on where everybody is and where everybody is going. And that will be our objective today. Although we should talk a little bit about the All-Star game itself. And we do this, I guess, every year. At least I feel like I do. I hate All-Star games. I think they're a complete waste of time. There's no redeeming value to them. It can't be anything more than a money grab. I think if you got rid of them all in 2 years, no one would notice. But we're not going to solve that problem.
Give the players 5 days off. Let them regenerate their batteries and get ready for the second half.
Well, that's what I'd rather do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most fans wouldn't miss an All-Star game, to tell you the honest to goodness truth. Maybe you watch it because there's nothing else on, but if it wasn't there, big deal.
Damn, I missed the Pro Bowl. Damn.
But sure. Where's the Pro Bowl played this year?
It was in Vegas, and it was the week before the Super Bowl.
Very good.
Yeah. Damn.
After years of giving away tickets in Hawaii and no one going. The one thing we're going to address, though, in this conversation is the slam dunk contest, because time to end that. Paul Jones, Eric Smith, this time on the podcast. We'll come back and commence after these messages. Well, we got into this conversation the other day about the National Hockey League, Shannon and I, about, people say it's the halfway point. Let's do an analysis at the halfway point. Well, it's not really the halfway point. It's well beyond the halfway point. But we're going to do that today from the perspective of the All-Star break, at least for the NBA. Our pals, Eric Smith, Paul Jones, with us. You look beautiful, both of you. Thank you.
This is quite a gap between the end of the All-Star game and the start of games, though, isn't it? Is this normal?
It is now. It's kind of new, yeah. The last few years since the new negotiation of the CBA was to get like a full week or week plus off instead of just 3 or 4 days.
You like it?
What it was, John, was basically the Stars, LeBron, complained that, wait a minute, we leave our teams for games on Thursday. We go to All-Star site Friday, All-Star Saturday night, All-Star Sunday. We travel back Monday and we start games Tuesday. We're the Stars and we're not getting a break. Meanwhile, the guys on the end of the bench are going to the sun and the beach for 4 days. So they extended it to give them some time. And Bobcat, to your point, it's halfway if you make it all the way to the finals in June.
Yeah.
So it's
I guess
for 2 teams.
For 2 teams, it's halfway. For the rest,
I guess all those little charters, those Lear jets that were in Cleveland went right to Cabo, I assume, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, let's start with the All-Star game, since that was the most recent basketball that we watched. Look, they change the format every year and a half, tweak it a little bit here and there. And now they play to a target score rather than to a time. Is that the latest deal?
Yeah.
And we loved playing to 21 for years, didn't we?
Well, horse, when you get to E, however long it takes, right?
That's right. That's right.
What was the motivation behind this? What are they afraid of overtime?
No, I'll start with that because the game was terrible.
It still is terrible.
And it's still sketchy now, maybe for the last 2 minutes of every quarter, because each quarter has a separate score and there's cash on the line for a charity. But it's still Eric and I we're talking to Rick Barry. It's still nothing like the pride in the All-Star game in the old days and the money involved. These guys are making all kinds of money. They play in these charity games in the summer, and it's as we were told, stop calling it a game. It's an All-Star exhibition, because that's what it is. I like the ending, because at least you have something that it'll get competitive when you get close to that ending. They did it with the rookie sophomore challenge, the Rising Stars challenge on the Friday. They do it with the game. So it makes it a little bit competitive, because, you're getting to the point where, hey, if we don't stop or if we don't score, we're going to lose. But up until then, it is an exhibition.
Well, one of the things that I suggest, I'm sure you guys have heard me say this, that, how do you, when you're asked, how do you save an All-Star game? Well, I've said, put $10 million or some significant amount of money in a basket, have it sitting on the sidelines, or in the case of hockey, in the penalty box, and say, there it is, winner take all. And let's see if they, dick around for 48 minutes or whether they actually really play. Now, I don't know how much money you'd have to put in there. I'm quite sure the NBA could afford it, but they seem to have no inclination to do that. So instead, they throw some money around to charity. And we're all, look at, I'm not against charity by any stretch of the imagination.
There it is. Bob McCallan's against charity.
But how much? Well, it was like 100,000 for each quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So 400. Am I right? $400,000 was what they offered to charity.
I usually leave the math to Jonesy, but it's something like that. 4 times 100, I think, is 400. So yes.
Well, that's chicken feed.
Well, but here's the problem, though, Bob, and I don't disagree with you to some extent. But how much money are you going to have to put up then? Because that's the other question, argument, suggestion that's been made about the dunk contest. I mean, we've seen in the past, and we're old enough to remember Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan, heck, even Kobe Bryant, and obviously Vince Carter. But when was the last time we saw a superstar in the dunk contest? And part of the reason for that, or against that, I suppose, is that there's probably not enough money. It actually was worth Michael Jordan's time because the money was worth it back then. Now you got, what's the average salary in the NBA now, Jonesy? I believe the average salary is well over $5 million just for the average salary. Not even talking league minimum. The league minimum's hovering around $1 million, I believe. So for a lot of these guys, Bob, I think for the dunk contest, or to your point, the game, hell, you might have to offer $10 million a person, not just a $10 million total to be divided up amongst the entire team. Because these guys, I think if it's coming down to dollars and cents, and the other subplot to all this, especially with the dunk contest and a lot of these other, sideshows of All-Star Weekend, is I think guys don't want to be embarrassed. Social media being what it is, they mess up, they screw up, they have a bad dunk, they have a couple of bad dunks, they miss a few shots in the three-point shootout, whatever, and it's instantaneously on Instagram, on Twitter, on Snapchat, and it's in Reels, and it's replayed, and it's on 50,000 different handles on 4 to 5 different platforms. And these guys are like, you know what? I don't need this. To Jonesy's point off the top, I'd rather go sit on the beach for 5, 6, 7 days. I don't need this.
Well, go ahead, Jonesy.
No, I was going to say, to E's point, and in the other part of that is, people are going to say, well, these guys are making enough money. Why are you giving them more money? Okay, we'll give the money to charity. And because, as we see in the game, that it's not directly benefiting them, it's still,
they're not motivated.
No, average competition at best. I agree, Bobcat. I totally agree.
Well, I'm going to go a step further, since he brought us into because we were just talking about the game itself. But I rarely tweet these days, but I tweeted out, I can't remember when, Sunday, I suppose. Time to end the slam dunk contest.
I'm done with it. I'm done with
horrific.
it.
It was horrific.
I'm done. And that's the other thing too, Bobcat, to E's point. They've made it the Rising Stars dunk contest or something. Like, nobody that's in their third year or beyond can be in it. So you're going to get these young guys, because the NBA's bailed out LeBron and Ja Morant and all of
give me Ja Morant against Giannis Antetokounmpo. One-on-one, just dunking on each other. Here we go. I'll watch that. And we saw better dunks from the two of them, especially from Ja Morant in the game, than we did in whatever the hell we watched on Saturday night.
Well, I think all they got to do is they've got to come up with some different format to entertain people. The slam dunk contest has been done, and it's been done to death.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how creative these guys are. And yes, star power matters. But even if it was the best players in the NBA, if it was the 5 best players in the NBA, I've seen all the dunks. There's nothing you can show me that I haven't seen done. And
guys are still
the only
doing
thing I can see. The only thing I could see in that, and it's, I would describe it as a combination of a slam dunk and the long jump, is put a line and see if somebody can get it from above the free throw line. Get it above, and because remember, that was the great storyline of Jordan's existence. That was early on. It was not the fanciness, but it was the distance. If they did something with pure and simple distance, and a player took off from beyond 18 feet, beyond, whatever
15.
it is, 18 from the baseline, it would be pretty cool. It would be pretty cool. And so that from that perspective, I think that I think there's something to look at there. But otherwise, I do agree with you guys. I think they should just blow it up.
Well, one of the things I was mentioning the other day too is I wonder if you go kind of like with the Olympic model and come up with a random year. I said 5 years to Jonesy. Bring it back every 5 years. We don't need to see it every single year, because maybe even after 5 years, you're okay with seeing a couple of the dunks that you saw 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you look forward to it, and you have one great year, or you have a stinker year and go, you know what? Don't need to worry about it for 5 more years. Because I just don't think you need to play it out every single year. Like, you could expand the field for the 3-point shootout. You could have a horse competition. That would actually be a lot of fun, and guys might have fun with it and not be as concerned about their rep or their image by missing a shot because they're going against Steph, who's pulling up for a 40-footer, or they're trying to go behind their back twice before they lay it, whatever goofiness they come up with. And that kind of is fun and might actually bring out some personality in some guys as well. So there's lots of things you could do to replace it. I just think that it's run its course to some degree, and you got to find some fresher things to do.
I think that, to your point, E, the 3-point shooting contest has always been, for me, the highlight of All-Star Saturday night, because the inherent drama is there's a finite ending. Guys take 5 or 6 racks, and you see how many you can get, and there's no subjectivity. I mean, guys are still doing Vince's dunks from 21 years ago. Everything's between the legs. Vince was the first one to unveil that. By the way, that dunk contest came after a layoff and a lockout, and there was excitement there, to your point, E, about having it every so often. Or John, like you said, put some inherent creativity in it for them. Look, the last dunk contest we had that was any good was 2016 in Toronto between Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon. And to me, when Aaron Gordon sat on that basketball, he won. Eric and I were there 2 years ago in Chicago, where they were dunking over a guy 7'6", and the judges were like, well, maybe it's okay. Like everything's been done, and I'm ready to move on from the dunk contest and put other stuff in. You know what I'd like to see? We had the legends there. Let me see a foul line elbow jump shooting contest on each side between Dr. J and Rick Barry on one side, and Michael Jordan and Larry Bird on the other side. Yeah. First group to 10. Like something like that. Give me something where the creativity and everybody's not kind of going, well, what was that? What is he trying to do there? And seeing a guy miss 9 dunks in a row, the same thing. I mean, yeah. I'm done with it. I'm done with that.
The only argument I have with all of it, but is that, I hate to tell you two young guys, but we're all old. We're old.
Hey, I'm not as old as all you guys. Come on.
No, but you're no. But just because you're wearing your beanie doesn't mean you're young. It doesn't mean you're young. Just you're trying to be young. It's not for us.
Yeah,
it's not for us. It's for the 12-year-olds. It's for the 10-year-olds.
John,
you're
right.
The next generation.
You're right though. But the 12-year-old, and I know you just pulled a random number out. I have a 12-year-old at home. The 12-year-old at home is going, Obi Toppin, Cole Anthony. Like maybe Jalen Green, maybe. No, he wants to see Ja Morant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James. That's who he wants to see. He doesn't care about these guys. Now, if Obi Toppin turns out to be an all-star and a household name in 3 years, okay, my kid, now he's 15, he's going to want to see Obi Toppin. But on the weekend, he's looking at this going, what the hell? I don't care about this. Cole Anthony's going to put on a pair of Timberlands. Okay, where's Giannis? That's what they want to see. So I agree with you. It's not for us, but it still is about the stars and not the the sort of young dudes or the bench guys that maybe haven't yet made their name in the game.
Well, and the issue we face, both in terms of the game being competitive or not competitive, which is what it is, and even the slam dunk contest, is nobody wants to get hurt, and we don't want anybody to get hurt. That's not our agenda. We don't need high risk. 3-point shooting contest, nobody's getting hurt from the 3-point shooting contest. It's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The game, well, that could be another issue. But a game of horse, you're not going to get hurt playing horse, I don't think. It's not, mano a mano. It's two separate guys. And if you guys, remember Home Run Derby?
Yes.
Sure.
So for those that don't remember,
Eric doesn't. Eric doesn't.
I do. I do.
So years and years ago,
because I'm old.
I think Saturday afternoon, there was like a half-hour television program on called Home Run Derby, where two major leaguers would face off like they do in the All-Star game, and most home runs wins. The difference was there were brackets, and each week you got to see two guys play. Well, the following week was two different guys, or the winner of the first match played the winner of the second match, kind of thing. And you worked your way down to the final weekend, which was the championship. Now, it was all recorded in spring training. It was all done in a couple of days, but it produced an extended television program. What about a game of horse where a whole bunch of guys are involved, but they play down maybe in training camp or whatever, and you show at halftime or as a separate entity?
I'm not even going to say a word because I know exactly where Jonesy's going. So
what are you
take
going to
the floor,
say?
Jonesy. Go ahead.
The two of us think alike, and I have a proposal sitting in my desk drawer for something exactly like that for All-Star Weekend. And instead of recording it in spring training or in training camp, in terms of the shooting part of it, guys come out and warm up before the game. So for a 7:30 Raptors game, Fred Van Vliet will come out at 10 after 6. Well, you have a 1 minute once he's warmed up and the Brooklyn Nets are on the other side. You have a 3-point contest with two guys. Let's say Fred and Precious Achua, and on the other side it's Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. And Brooklyn wins that night. Their total of 14, 8 from one guy, 6 from the other guy, beats the Toronto total of 13, 7 from one guy, 6 from the other guy. And Brooklyn has a point. And you do this throughout the season up until All-Star break, and you've got a champion from each division. There are 6 divisions.
And then you show the
two
finals.
wild cards. And two wild cards, and they go to All-Star weekend.
Well, whatever.
And you do it there. Involvement. I agree.
You can create the final live during All-Star weekend, but everything that leads up to it could be shown at halftime of games. It could be shown as a separate program, could be on NBA TV if you want it, like Home Run Derby used to be. There are all kinds of ways to expand this format so that it becomes hopefully somewhat meaningful. And the NBA's lack of creativity in this is, shocking, because the NBA generally is pretty good at understanding where they're at and where they need to go. And I think they've missed the boat completely on this one.
All-Star games are necessary evils. That's all they are right now. They're necessary evils. Everybody expects one. The corporate partners get one because it's part of their package. And then what you want to do is let's just get it over with. Let's just, and having been a guy that has been involved in creating All-Star weekends, by the time you get to the All-Star weekend, let's just get it over with and get back to stuff that really matters, which is playoff runs, and the such. That's really in the end what happens. The human nature of how important is this takes over.
Well, let's go back to the original All-Star game format. In Major League Baseball, starting in the 1930s, I believe, the All-Star game was between the American League and the National League at a time where the only time those two leagues met was the two championship teams playing in the World Series. Well, that had uniqueness to it, but they tried. There was competitive balance there. Everybody was trying to win, and it wasn't motivated by money. It was motivated by pride. To the point where Major League Baseball actually at one point expanded to 2 All-Star games a year in the early 60s. Hockey has done the same. Basketball has done the same. I mean,
Well,
football,
hockey, if you recall, hockey,
The champs
All-Star
against the
games
All-Stars. Yeah.
used
Well,
to
and that's
be
what
the
I was gonna
champions
point out.
against the All-Star. Yeah.
and it was a
Yeah.
real game. It was a sense of pride. The defending Stanley Cup champions didn't want to get beat by the All-Stars, and the All-Stars vice versa didn't want to get beat. So I don't think you can bring that back. I think we all agree that that kind of competitive edge is probably lost. But there are other things you can do, and they just seem reluctant to do them. Let's
Actually, one more thing on the All-Star weekend that amazes me. And if I would have told you after Jim Gray and LeBron James sat down and he said he was taking his work to South Beach, that LeBron James would now go back to Cleveland, even though he's 2 teams apart from them, and now be a superstar hero in Cleveland for the rest of his life. I think that's fascinating. I really do. That LeBron can now do no wrong in Cleveland because he's done the one thing no one else has been able to do, and that's bring a championship to Cleveland. And even though he's left, they love him more than ever in Cleveland, don't they?
Well, it's interesting.
yeah.
It's interesting, guys, that some athletes will get booed forever or virtually forever, and others are admired, forgiven. I'm trying to.
He's
think of
left
examples.
twice. He's left twice.
Well, look at Vince. Look at when Vince left. Look at how Toronto fans reacted to Vince. Conversely, when Doug Gilmour left and came back, he was revered.
Well, Gilmour got traded. Gilmour got traded. It wasn't. He didn't have any say. The Leafs just didn't want to.
Yeah,
pay
I
him
guess you're
anymore.
right. That's probably.
I mean LeBron left twice.
Yeah, no, you're right, John. Jonesy and I were discussing this earlier. I don't know if you saw this. So it was a tweet that was sent out. Slam Studios, affiliated with Slam Magazine, did a poll, and apparently the poll was conducted through Reddit users through the website reddit.com. So I don't know the average age of the person they polled or the people they polled or whatnot, but I'll throw it to both of you, just like I did to Jonesy earlier. They came up with the most hated player from each city in the NBA. And it could have been your own player or former player. It could be just an opposing player that has come to town. But the most hated player from each NBA team based on a survey taken through Reddit users.
Okay.
Who do you think was the most hated player for Toronto Raptor fans? Because I don't give you a quick little hint. You will not get the answer. Like, I was shocked by the answer. But who would you have said?
Tracy McGrady.
Okay.
Active player?
It could be active or retired.
Well, the obvious for me would be Vince, but clearly it's not Vince.
It's not Vince. I would have guessed LeBron, because as much as people in Toronto love the Stars and they love to see
Oh, he
LeBron,
doesn't have to be a
LeBron-
former Raptor.
No.
Oh, I get it. I see.
No,
I
it
see.
could be any player in the league. Like Grayson Allen, for some reason, was the Laker fan base's number one. Rajon Rondo was for the Dallas Mavericks. I'm trying to remember, Jonesy, off the top of my head, some of the other ones. Kyle Lowry was the most hated player for Orlando Magic fans. But the most hated player, I would have thought LeBron, just because as much as we love the Stars and he still sells out Scotiabank Arena, he punched the Raptors in the nose in the postseason so many times.
Yeah,
so many times.
Okay.
But the number one guy,
okay, go ahead.
allegedly, according to this survey, this poll, Kyrie Irving.
I can see that.
But why? I'm trying to think. What did Kyrie's had a couple
I'm
of good games.
I'm trying to see that too. I thought it might have been Joel Embiid with his antics in the championship run that season and finally beating them and his airplane rides and stuff like that. But Kyrie Irving, you got me on that one.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving.
How do you see that one, John?
I see it because I think basketball fans in Toronto look at him with everything that he had in Cleveland, and he screwed that up. Everything he went to Boston and screwed that up. It's got nothing to do with the Raptors. It's got more to do with Kyrie being, unstable.
They just don't like Kyrie, I guess.
Yeah, they just don't like Kyrie. The one thing I would say about LeBron, Eric, is that, and we've learned this over the years, is LeBron loves the city of Toronto.
Oh yeah.
LeBron has always.
Yes, he does.
I mean, even that compliment at the end of one of the playoff series on national television, where he said to Doris Burke, "Listen to these people; they are remarkable. They are good. What a great
game 6
fan
of the
base."
conference finals. Yeah.
So to me, there was always that, God, he beats us every time, but he really likes us. He really likes us.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very Toronto of you, John.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, welcome to Canada.
Yeah, we're more concerned with how you feel about us than what you do to us.
Right. Oh no, but tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, kick the shit out of us, but do it with a smiling face, and we'll be okay with it.
Oh yeah. Well,
We want to talk about the second half of this season and where it's going for a bunch of teams, including the Toronto Raptors. We'll do that when we continue after these messages. It's McCowan, it's Shannon, it's Paul Jones, Eric Smith, as we talk hoops at this All-Star break, as the final third, or the second half, as you choose, is about to dawn. Well, let's start with the Toronto Raptors, the local group. I think you have to be, Raptor fans in general should be pleased with what they've seen. I think they've been surprisingly competent for the most part. And yet, maybe this is just me speaking, but I have no level of confidence as to what they can accomplish, assuming they make the playoffs. And I think we all assume that they will. But where are you guys at? First of all, are you surprised that they've been as good as they have been over the first, 50-something games? Jonesy, to you first.
No, I'm not. Because I think, we throw this word culture around in sports, and it's really kind of nebulous. It's hard to define. And I've kind of categorized it as a way of doing things with expectations attached. We all know how Masai wants to win. We all know how Nick coaches and what he instills in his players, and that has formed the basis of Toronto's culture. And the expectations are winning. So I can't say I saw, 5 and 6 game winning streaks, but I see them. I thought best case scenario for them might have been, 42 and 40, 41 and 41. Vegas had their over under at 36.5. I thought somewhere around the 500 mark. So they're maybe a little ahead of schedule where I thought they'd be, but I thought they would be okay. And what I do see now is a team that's resilient, that play together, that don't care who gets the credit, and hold each other accountable and win. And you know what? They are going to be, if they are healthy, they are going to be a tough out. They might be in what I've been calling affectionately the pit, the play-in tournament. They might be in there 7 to 10. Or they might creep up to 5 or 6 and have a guaranteed 7-game potential series as a playoff team. Either way, they are going to be a tough out. And when you play them, if you are knocking them out, you are going to feel it. So I think they've done really well. And my next question is, what does that do to their timetable going forward? Do the expectations change? Do they try to accelerate things? Did they see this as a bonus year? But there's part of me, Bob, to your original question, that is not surprised at how well they're doing.
Eric, what about you?
Yeah, at the risk of being boring here and agreeing, he and I are in lockstep, because at the beginning of the year, when we did our sort of season preview shows and whatnot, I had the Raptors over 500, probably I think Jonesy had said 42 and 40. So I had them above 500 and kind of somewhere in that 6, 7, 8 range, or 6 to 10, if we want to call it that, Bob. So I felt that they'd be in the conversation, and lo and behold, here we are, basically 2/3 of the way season, and they're right in that conversation. I don't think that they're a top 4 team, but are they a team that could be there in 5, 6? Yeah. Could they be stuck in 8 or 9 and having to fight their way in? Yeah, very easily. But I think we now know, when you look at the standings, we know who the 10 teams are. It's just a matter of what seed are you going to have in those 10. And I could absolutely see the Raptors climbing up to Jonesy's point and getting above that line and getting a locked in playoff series. Or I could absolutely see them below, because I think it has as much to do with how they play as it does how other teams play. Because the Raptors could continue to play, Bobcat and John, on this same level. But if Boston keeps coming on strong, if Brooklyn makes the turnaround that we anticipate is going to come to some extent, even if they don't vault all the way back up to 1 or 2, I don't think most of us anticipate that they're going to stay at 8 or 9. So if Boston thinks they're moving up and Brooklyn thinks they're moving up, well, and Toronto thinks they might move up, okay, we're now talking about 2-3 teams. Who from the top 6 are following them? So it's going to be a dogfight for Toronto, let alone everybody else in that Eastern Conference picture. So I think they'll be there. I just couldn't sit here and tell you how easily they will be there and whether or not they're going to be able to be around long enough to make noise. They might be, but there's so much competition.
So, Paul, let me ask you this. You talked about the culture and it's, the team mentality. Who does that reflect most on? Masai, Nick, or Fred VanVleet?
I think it comes from the top down, John. I think it probably comes from Masai, is manifested through Nick, and Fred has basically stepped in for Kyle and taken everything that he watched Kyle do sitting in the passenger seat beside him in terms of leading the team, holding guys accountable, being the heart and soul of the team. And it's now yours. And Kyle has openly said that from his spot in Miami, his little brother, Fred VanVleet. And I think all three of them are in line with how this team, what the expectations are and how this team is supposed to perform. It comes from the boardroom level with Masai. It translates to Nick as the coach, and on to Fred, who takes it onto the floor. And look, some of the other guys too, like Pascal Siakam, has been unbelievable in the last little while. I mean, people were on him. He jumped on a moving train after not having a training camp and having an injury that you couldn't rehab by playing basketball, a shoulder injury. And now that he's back in form, man, he's cooking people. I think Scotty Barnes is probably, they knew he was good. They didn't know he was going to be this good this early, and he's kind of going a little bit up and down. But when you push him and make him aggressive, man, he's good. And they've just all come together, and it's one of those where everybody understands what they're supposed to do and how important what they do is to the team, so they do it. And that's part of the winning culture, John, reflected in all three of those guys.
Jonesy, I would piggyback on that quickly just to say as well. And I it's not to say that Nick is higher than Masai or Fred's higher than Nick or anything like that. I just think I look at Nick setting the tone based on even just the distribution of minutes, which has been a big topic of late, the starters' minutes and how much they're logging. And I think part of that is because Nick is looking and saying, I'm getting from these guys what I expect. I'm getting from these guys what I've been preaching. And those that are listening and those that are performing to the way that I want and to the way that I'm preaching and to the culture, to use Jonesy's word, that we have, they're the ones that are going to play most. Because you can't sit here and say, and I'm not ripping on these guys and to say that they haven't done this or that they need to look in the mirror or anything like that. But if you're not performing to the level that you need to based on Nick Nurse's standards, then you're not going to play, or you're going to see your minutes cut big time. Because a guy like Svi Mykhailiuk or a guy like Yuta Watanabe, they've both had multiple chances this year. They've both even had multiple chances in the starting lineup. And if they're not able to perform or they're not doing what's expected, then you know what? Time to move back a couple of pegs. And you'll have that chance to get back in there again. Nick Nurse has proven that his leash can be long or short when needed, but he's not about like burying a guy in the outhouse. He'll give you a chance again, but you got to earn your way. You got to prove your way. And those guys that continue to earn and prove are the ones that he sticks with. Hence the reason he's really starting to lock in on a set core, obviously his starters, but a set rotation of his second unit too. And I imagine that's only going to get tighter as we get later into the season and certainly into the postseason.
I just want to add a couple things I don't disagree with anything you said, especially, Jonesy, when you were identifying individuals, but you didn't mention Trent Jr. And I think he's been the biggest surprise by far for me. you know, plays aggressive defense, generally pretty good defense, is a real ball hawk, and can shoot. And maybe selfish sometimes, but he loves to rattle his own buckets in. And he's done it with success. And, you know, Siakam is doing what you hoped he would do. I think Van Vliet is doing what you hoped he would do. Maybe they're doing it better than, I'm not trying to minimize what they've done, but there was a level of at least possibility, if not expectation, that they would perform that way. Anunoby has been a bit of a disappointment for most of this year to me. And Barnes, as a young player in his first year, has been admirable. Although of late, you're right, he's been up and down.
This is a long season for him when you consider how many games you play in the college basketball season.
I don't disagree with you. And I think he's got a big future, but he's not really impactful on a regular basis. Trent Jr. is. And the one thing I will say about this Raptors team is you can theoretically say any night, anybody can beat anybody else in professional sports. And there's truth in that. Do I expect this Raptors team to go beyond the first round of the playoffs? I don't. Is it possible they go to the NBA final? Yeah. I don't think it's going to happen. But this is such a unique team, the way it's structured. And if they get hot, if their shooting is hot, they win. It's pretty much as simple as that, isn't it? You know,
yeah, with the defense they play, Bob, and their defense has given them opportunities to make shots. And one of the crazy stats that E and I always look at this year, they're getting, because of the way they play defense, the steals, the deflections, the turnovers from a guy like Gary Trent Jr. and people like Fred VanVleet. They are on average getting 8 to 10 more shots a game than an opponent. And people might think, well, 10 shots, 8 shots. Well, wait a minute. If you're shooting 40% and you're making 4 out of 10, and a couple of those are threes, that's like 10 points. And that's huge. And it may be as simple as that, Bobcat, just as you said, making shots. But I think their defense has been really good this year too at times.
Well, and Jonesy, I'm putting you on the spot on this one because you track this better than I do. Even if you don't have the exact number, what's the number at right now for the Raptors in terms of games, 3 points or less with 2 minutes to play? They've played. What's their record now?
Second most,
32 and 25. So they've played 57 games, and just shy of half of those games, if I'm not mistaken, it's around 23 or 24 games. They've had 3 points or less with 2 minutes to go.
Second most games in the NBA, and they have 12 wins, 12 and 11. They're just above 500. The percentage isn't in the top 10, but the 12 wins is second in the NBA. So they're making their money by winning close games.
And proving how tough they are to be out on most nights.
That's it. I mean, there were Raptor teams in the early DeRozan days that we thought were good, but invariably came up against Cleveland and LeBron and got thrashed. And then got swept in a couple of series too.
Bob,
I don't think this team is this kind of team. I think this team is going to win a game or 2 or 3 or even 4 in any series they play, no matter who the opposition is.
Bobcat, to your point, I think, and we've said this before, I think as rebuild or reload or going forward works, this team is in a better spot, is starting from a better spot than that Lowry DeRozan team that lost to the Nets in 2013. I think this team is further ahead than that team because of the experience of guys like VanVleet, Siakam, Anunoby. Boucher had his hands on the trophy, like these, and they've got the stability from Nick, and there's a belief there. So to your point, yes, they are farther ahead, and I still say this: tough out. They're going to be a very tough out.
Well, the other thing is, and we all know this, their weakness is their bench, and it's a significant weakness. But as you get into the playoffs, bench becomes far more irrelevant.
Right.
And you pray that this team is able to stay healthy with the number of minutes that Nurse is making them play. Because this was a big issue just 2-3 years ago in the NBA. How much rest time do you need? This team's getting no rest, but they seem perfectly capable of playing through all that. So maybe it matters not.
Do you expect then this team, I mean, with trade deadline's gone and passed, but can this team do anything at buyout time? I mean, there's March 1st is coming. Are they going to be active? What do you think they're going to do, if anything at all? When you talk about a reload.
Yeah, the funny thing is, John, if I were to describe the type of player that they need right now, I would argue they could probably use a veteran ball handler, a veteran shot maker, somebody with some playoff experience, somebody that could back up Fred VanVleet.
You mean like Goran Dragic?
Goran Dragic would have been great. And now he's going to Brooklyn. That's what they could use, and I don't know that player out there exists. So I don't know about Jonesy. I don't anticipate them being overly active with the buyout market because I'm not sure that there really is that player that's going to be that much of an impact coming in. I really don't.
So we all have bought into the notion of, 4 power forwards and Freddie is fine.
Bob wants
don't really
a big
need
man.
a center, huh?
Bob wants a big man.
Bob, and you know what? It's funny because we've talked a lot about this, and even the classic centers, the guys who you would consider classic centers now, like an Embiid, like a Brook Lopez, if he ever gets healthy for Milwaukee, Nikola Jokic, they're all playing on the perimeter too. You saw when they played Denver on that Saturday night, like Jokic. Eric and I joked about it on the radio. He can't jump over your Saturday paper. You time him end to end with a sundial, but he doesn't shrink. He's still 7 feet. And the good thing is, if you're the Raptors, he's got to play the other end too. You can put him in pick and rolls, and it makes it difficult for him. But that classic guy doesn't exist. And the way the game's being played, Bob, the Raptors are getting paint touches. They kick it out. They swing it. Some guy gets an open three and they knock it down. And it's aesthetically pleasing basketball to watch. But as John would say, from our old guys and our view of our generation of basketball, it looks different. There isn't the get it to the big guy on the block and attract a double, and there isn't that. The lane is open now, and you're moving to this positionless ball. One of my favorite lineups for Nick Nurse is Precious Achiuwa, Chris Boucher, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, and
Scotty Barnes
and Scotty Barnes. 5 guys on the floor that are 6'8", 6'9". Pascal and Scotty handle the ball as playmakers. They switch everything. They run. They rebound. It's a really effective and impactful group, and it's a way to get Freddie a rest.
Hard to argue. Real quickly, we only got a few minutes to go here. Do you fear anybody in the East?
No.
You got 6 teams ahead of the Raptors right now. The Celtics are have won 9 out of 10, but the Raptors have the next best record over the last 10 at 8-2. So there's that point. But Heat, Bulls, Sixers, Cavs, Bucks.
Let me give you something. Let me give you something, Bobcat. No, and we know this. No game in January or February means anything in April or May in a 7-game series. The third game in 4 nights on a Tuesday night in February, it doesn't mean anything in the playoffs.
Sure.
But Raptors have won 2 out of 3 against Miami, and they play a similar plucky, gritty style. They're 3-0 against Milwaukee. Milwaukee's never beaten them in a playoff series. They've won on the road in Philadelphia. They've got some games coming up with them. Who up there? Who else am I missing? They've beaten Chicago.
Cavaliers, and they're an emerging team, but I don't believe in them.
They've had one game, the COVID game, the day after Christmas, that they lost by 45 points when they were ready to suit up John Shannon to a 10-day. That doesn't count to me.
Listen, I may not be 7 feet, but you can time me with a sun, with it.
And it wouldn't have been a 10-day, Jonesy. It would have been a 1 day.
No, a 10-minute.
10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, pretty good from 3-point line, though. Pretty good from the 3-point line.
So he says.
Oh.
Hey, Bob, I would say this to Jonesy's point. I'd say it almost, again, agreeing, but saying in a different way. Toronto may not be the favorite in any of those series. But to your point earlier, it wouldn't surprise me if they won. Like, I would not, if I'm the Raptors right now, and if the playoffs started tomorrow, I wouldn't be fearful of any opponent. I wouldn't walk and go, oh man, we drew the Heat. Oh boy, we got the Cavs, we got the Bulls. You have every reason to believe you could win that series. Hey, you might get knocked out in 4 games, but I don't think you're fearing anybody in the conference right now.
Could you out Kyle is the question, I think, more than anything. That might
I'll go a step further, E, and I'll tell you that, you know, we understand who the best teams in the NBA are. They're in the West. And Phoenix is almost certainly at the top of that list, and Golden State isn't far behind. But
don't forget Memphis, Bob.
And Memphis, yeah.
is they're a going concern.
I don't fear any of them either.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, you're not going to have to face them until the final. But is it possible? That's the interesting thing about this team, is I don't think there's a team out there that. Well, let me ask you this question in this way. Is there a team out there that is the most problematic for the Raptors style-wise?
Well,
I might say Philadelphia.
Okay.
I might say Philadelphia.
I got a different answer.
I might say Philadelphia because when that guy decides he's going to go inside, he's been the best player in the league the last.
Problem, he doesn't decide enough. He doesn't decide
exactly,
enough.
John. Exactly.
Well, and he had that Ofer game against the Raptors a couple of years ago.
And who knows how he and Harden will get along? Come on.
I was going to say Milwaukee, and I know Jonesy just mentioned how the Raptors are undefeated against them, and they never beat the Raptors in a playoff series yet. Milwaukee, I still think with not just Giannis, but with Middleton and with Holiday and with the depth that they have, I think that still, as the defending champs, and Giannis being that type of player, different but still can do it inside, can do it outside, can do it on both ends. That would be the one that would invoke the most fear potentially. I mean, Brooklyn is still interesting to figure out because we don't know when KD's healthy and what's Ben Simmons going to be. But I mean, but Milwaukee's the one at the top of my list.
I must admit, I'd love to see a Miami-Toronto series. I really would.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
It really would. I really would.
Well, fascinating. We solved nothing, or maybe we did inadvertently.
Yeah, I got a 10-day tryout from Jonesy.
Well, you got a 1-day tryout from me and 10 minutes from E. So
get your sundial out.
Average it all out. Yeah. 5 minutes is probably what you're going to get. Thank you, boys. It's always our pleasure. We enjoy very much having a chance to chat with you guys, and hopefully we'll have a chance to do it before the playoffs start and get everybody ready for the postseason, in which we think we all agree the Raptors will be in. All the best. Stay safe. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, John.
Eric Smith, Paul Jones. We'll come back and wrap it after these messages. And we're back. Thank you to Paul Jones, Eric Smith, for being with us.
They weren't in Cabo San Lucas like the rest of the NBA.
Well, they work for Sportsnet.
Don't go there. Do not go there.
I don't work for the NBA. All I said was they work for Sportsnet. Is that true?
Yeah.
I didn't make any comment about that.
Yeah, well, it was the way you made the comment, Bob.
Well, I just said they work for Sportsnet.
It's your tone.
How many times during your tenure at Sportsnet did you get sent by Sportsnet to Cabo San Lucas?
Well, no, you go on your own.
Well, they have to work. They cover the NBA, but they don't play in the NBA.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I mean, they get days off, all these days off from doing the play-by-play, but they still have other things that they get paid for, unlike you and I.
True.
Are you suggesting that all my bitching about not getting a free trip to Cabo San Lucas is the reason why I'm no longer there? What you're suggesting?
Might be. It might be.
Well, then there's no justification for my demise at all because I never mentioned it.
Okay, Atlantis.
I was going to go somewhere else. Oh, we want to talk about the Phil Mickelson thing, and we don't have a whole lot of time here, but we're going to get to it at some point over the next day or two, I hope. Because this is a most interesting story. Mickelson who was the most vocal, effectively more in condemnation of the PGA Tour than in promotion of the Saudi Tour. But he was extremely vocal about it and has now issued a half apology. He's apologized to Greg Norman and his company and the Saudis, but not to the PGA Tour. And that has
or its members. Yeah, that's right.
And that has brought down a boatload of criticism on it and the loss of at least one of his sponsors, KPMG.
Yeah, his longest running sponsor, which it was fascinating, and it'll be interesting to see how many of his other sponsors will follow suit. You know, he made an unbelievable amount of money in endorsements last year. I think it was close to $40 million, and his purses on the tour were a fraction of that. So for him to be this critical about, the tour winning on the backs of the stars really is going to be, I think the fallout is going to be long, and he may never recover from it, Bob, in my opinion.
Well, and what's intriguing is he's getting almost no support by the fellow players because, unlike a couple of weeks ago where people seem to be considering the possibility, virtually every single star has now said no to the Saudis.
Yeah.
So I think he found out he was on an island and tried to get back to the mainland, and it's a bumpy ride. We're going to talk about it later in the week. We hope you'll join us for that. And again, our thanks to Smith & Jones. For John Shannon, Bob McCown. See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.